Alright guys, what's going on? It's Kake, and welcome to today's video where I'm going to be going over what I would widely consider my favorite deck to ever come out of Vanguard, which is Timeleap, which is my premium version. Excuse me. So, as I've mentioned in every video where I talk about gears, Timeleap was my very first deck. Timeleap, for me has been around for I've basically been playing this deck since I was a junior in high school, and we're talking that was like 4 years ago? Like 4 or 5 years ago? Wow, time really does fly. But yeah, I had seen other premium Timely videos. I never really liked the way they play. Like, I always felt like they were very inconsistent and didn't do the time leap thing that I knew. So I kind of just said, you know what, I want to build my own, and I'm actually very happy with this build. It works pretty well. So let's get into it, shall we? So our starter is, of course, going to be Dran. Chrono Dran is the Gear Chronicle starter. Like, you have to run Dran because of one of my grade 1s I'm running. I mean, you can use another one if you want, but then you'd have to make an edit to the grade 1 count. But Dran, for me, is always going to be the time leap starter. And this is the V1 with the standard V skill. So, starting with triggers, I am running 5 crit, 4 copies of the not the draw PG, I'm running that, but 4 copies of the Destroy crit, and then a single copy of Kadesh. And Kadesh says, GB1, when your Vanguard attacks, put this unit into the soul, draw a card, choose one of your Vanguards and gets plus 10. So you can run Heart Thump in this place if you want. I know with the new errata, it's going to be doing the plus 10 instead of plus 5. However, I feel like this is better, even though it's GB1 locked. I'd rather get the extra 5. I mean, that's really the only difference. It's a plus 10 instead of a plus 5. Then I'm running 4 draw PGs. Now, you can run the Elemental Sanctitude if you really want. However, I don't really want to run that, as I want more draw power. Like, this deck doesn't already have enough filtering, searching, and drawing. Then I am running 2 copies of Urwatar, and Urwatar is part of the Elite 4 combo. And Urwatar says auto GB1, put this unit on the bottom of the deck. When this unit is put into the bind zone from rear, you may pay the cost. If you do, draw 2, choose a card from your hand, return it to the deck, and shuffle. So this basically just helps, fix your hand, stuff like that. Then for the heal guard, I feel like this is pretty standard at this point. I don't really need to say anything. Dark States OT. Bushy, please, for the love of God, just get rid of the overtrigger and premium. I can't tell you the amount of games I've won because I've hit the overtrigger. Like, it doesn't feel like a genuine win. Now, we are running 2 other grade 0s in the deck. I am also running the original Dran. And what this Dran does is GB1. Put this card into the soul. When this unit is placed in the bind zone from rear, you may pay the cost. If you do, search your deck for up to 1 grade 3 with Chronojet and its card name, call it to the rear guard. Shuffle the deck, and at the end of the turn, return the called unit with this effect to your hand. So basically, you get a stride cost. And then I'm also running a single copy of TikTok Worker, which, again, part of the Elite 4. Which, this has Time Leap, which Time Leap, I've talked about it, is when you bind one of your rear guards and you call a unit from the deck with grade +1. So grade 0 to grade 1, grade 1 to grade 2, grade 2 to grade 3, grade 3 to grade 4. And if they ever come out with a grade 5 in gear, grade 4 to grade 5. And basically, this says Timeleap, Auto, GB1, put this into the soul. At the end of the battle that your other rear guard attacked, you may pay the cost if you do Timeleap that unit. And that is it for the grade 0s. Now I'm going to move on to the grade 1s, which, So, starting off, I'm running 4 copies of Smokier, not Steam Breath Dragon, my bad. So this is the V version. This grade 3 Searcher, that's why I run it, it's our grade 3 Searcher. 4 copies of Mazer Gear. Yeah, I got that right, Mazer Gear. This is why you need Dran as your starter, because when you ride it, you get the crest. And I'm going to go over the crest real quick. So the crest basically says you have to ride a Crown Jet Vanguard, which you always will. Your front row gets +5 for all your face-up G units, which in Gear Chronicle you can get, like on your second stride turn, you can get GB8, like easily. Your jet gets automatic 13k, which kind of comes in because we run Crown Jet Dragon G. And then we can choose one of our grade 3 units with, at the beginning of the battle phase, we can choose one of our grade 3 rear guards and increase or decrease its level to 0, grade to 0. So this basically just adds extra power and just breaks the deck even more. This, you want to ride this every single game. You want Mazer as your grade 1 ride without fail. Like, sometimes you won't, sometimes you will. It all depends. Now, if you don't have Mazer Gear or you can't afford Mazer Gear because this is like a $28 card, you can run Time Break Dragon, which is another unit with the Timeleap keyword, which will come into play once we get into the strides. Or you can run 4 Chrono Tooth Tiger. I think that's the grade 1 dog. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. I never really got into V-era gears. Next, I am running 2 copies of Tickaway Dragon. So Tickaway Dragon basically says when your other rear guard is placed due to the ability of Timeleap, you get to put a card from your drop zone to the bottom of the deck. Now, an interesting ruling I never knew about with Tickaway is at the end of the turn, when you're putting units back, that's actually because of Timeleap, so you can put more cards back. So depending on how much you Timeleap, you can put up to like 8 cards back. Yeah, that's kind of nuts. I never really knew that until I tried to do my research, but I actually kind of like that. Next, I'm running 2 copies of Steam Sniper Lishma. And Lishma says Timeleap, auto rear, Soul Blast 1, and choose a card from hand and discard it. At the end of the battle that this unit boosted a Vanguard, you may pay the cost if you do Timeleap this unit. And then auto GB1, Counterblast 1. When this unit is placed on rear from bind zone, you may pay the cost if you do draw. So basically, extra Timeleap. That's all I really need to say. And then rounding off the grade 1, I'm running 2 copies of Mellum. And Mellum says auto rear GB1. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, if you may have this unit get +4 until the end of the battle. If you do at the end of the battle, return this unit to the deck and search your deck for up to 1 grade 0, call to the rear as rest. So, depending on your situation, you're usually going to call out either your Erbitar or one of either Dran or TikTok. One of those two. And this again is part of the Elite 4 combo. Now, moving on to the grade 2s, I am running, of course, 4 copies of History Maker. This is like a staple 4 of in any Timeleap deck. And this unit says Timeleap, which is the keyword. Auto Rear GB1, Counterblast 1. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, you may pay the cost. If you do, choose up to one of your other rear guards and Timeleap it. So, more Timeleaping, more multi-attack. So, the Elite 4, if I remember correctly, is Erbitar, Melum, TikTok, and History Maker. So, yeah, you can pull a lot of shenanigans off with this. Next, I am running 3 copies of Delayed Blazer Dragon. And Delayed Blazer says, Auto, when this unit is placed on rear from your deck due to Timeleap, if you have a Vanguard with Chronojet in its card name, which you always will, this gets +2, so it becomes an 11k. And then Timeleap, Auto, GB1. When this unit is placed on rear, if you have a grade 4 Vanguard with Chronojet, which you always will, in its card name, choose one of your grade 2 rear guards and you may Timeleap it. So, you can cut one of these for a grade 4 if you really want to. There are some times I wish I had a grade 4 in the main deck. However, I found sometimes the grade 4 can be really bricky if you open it, or also if you damage it, but that's up to you. You can run a grade 4 in here. Just, you can cut one of these because of how easily accessible the deck really is. And then last but not least, rounding out the grade 2s, I'm running 3 copies of Smoke Gear. And Smoke Gear says, Auto, Van Rear, when this unit attacks a Vanguard, it gets +5 until the end of the battle. And if you wrote a grade 4 this turn, so +1 draw. So that first skill doesn't really come up too much. I mean, it's a 15k beat stick, but this is the main reason we run it. The second skill, Continuous Rear if your Vanguard is Chronojet Dragon. When you would discard a card from hand, it may be discarded as a grade 3. So, yeah, basically just helps us be able to pay for Stride a lot easier. And that is it for the grade 2s. Now moving on to the grade 3s. I took a little bit of a more unusual approach. So I'm actually running 4 copies of Chronojet Dragon G. And Chronojet Dragon G says, Continuous, during your turn for every 2 face-up cards in the G zone, this unit gets +5, and all of your Zodiac Time Beast rear guards get +1000. The ZTB clause does not really come up, because we don't really run ZTBs. And then Timeleap, Auto, during your turn, when your Gear Dragon or ZTB unit strides, choose up to 1 card from hand called to the rear guard, then choose one of the rear guards and Timeleap it. So you're not really going to get this skill on first stride, and I'll explain why. But it's still a really good card, and it just gets extra power. Plus it has a Timeleap keyword. And then I'm running 3 copies of the V-Era Jet. And this Chronojet says, Act Van, discard 1 card with whose grades equal grade 3 or greater. Search your deck for up to 1 grade 4, ride it as stand, shuffle the deck at the end of the turn, retire that unit, and ride a grade 3 from your Soul's Rest. That part doesn't come up. This is the second skill is what we're worried about. Continuous Van Rear, when it attacks, counterblast 1. And until the end of the battle, this gets +5. Your opponent cannot call Sentinels. So, if you really want to, you could cut a copy of G for the fourth copy of Jet. You can do that. However, I found running this at 4 actually it's worked out pretty well. You it kind of it kind of depends on the situation what you want to ride. But I found usually riding, I mean, both of these are really busted no matter what you choose to ride. So it's up to you how you want to do the grade 3. I've just found this works, but that's just my personal opinion. So that is it for the main deck. Now moving on to the G Zone. I am running a single copy of Metallica Phoenix. And this is always, always, always going to be your first stride. It has the Timeleap keyword. Now, the reason I keep mentioning that is because we run 4 copies of History Build, which we'll get to in a second. And this just says when it attacks, G flip, which means turning a card from the G zone face up, and Timeleap. And the card we're going to be flipping is going to be the next card I'm going to go over, which is 4 copies of Interdimensional Dragon History Build Dragon. And History Build says continuous van and G zone. If this card is face up during your turn, all of your units with the Timeleap ability get +3. So that's why I kept mentioning the Timeleap keyword, because all your units with Timeleap get +3, and that just stacks more and more as the game goes. So basically, this is the split Pegasus of Timeleap. Then it has Timeleap, Auto Van. When this unit attacks, Soul Blast 1, turn a card from the G zone face up. Timeleap up to the same number of your rear guards, the number of cards face up in the G zone. So usually you're not really going to be striding this until like later in the game. But we also have other strides we go into, so I think I run it at 4. You can cut it to 3 if you really want to. Then I'm running 2 copies of Next Stage, the original Next Stage. And Next Stage says Auto GB2, Auto Van GB2, Counterblast 1, G Flip itself, discard 3 cards. At the end of the battle that attacked a Vanguard, if you have a heart card with Chronojet Dragon in the card name, which we always will, you may pay the cost. If you do, you put this into the G zone and you ride it as stand. And you ride the heart card as stand. So basically, I'm going to go over why I run that because of Gear Groovy. But we're going to get to that in a second. And then I run 2 copies of Ragnarok. And Ragnarok says Auto Van, Counterblast 1, choose a face down card with the same name, turn it face up. When this unit attacks, you may pay the cost. If you do, until the end of the battle, your opponent cannot call grade 0s from hand to Guardian, and if the number of face-up cards in the G zone is 2 or more, it gets crit +1. So it's a guard restrict, and all that other fun stuff, plus it gets a little bit of extra power and crit. Now, the main reason we run that is because we run 2 copies of Gear Groovy. And Gear Groovy says, Act Van once per turn, GB2, choose a face-down card with the same name, flip it, and then you choose the auto ability of 2 face-up Gear Dragons in the G zone, and it gets all of those chosen abilities until the end of the turn. And then its second skill is GB3. Act Van once per turn, GB3, Soul Blast 1, choose a face down card in the G zone, turn it face up. Then it gets +5. So, depending on the situation, you're always going to choose this. This is always going to be one of your cards that you're going to choose. Now, depending on the situation, you can go with one of these two. If you really, like, it depends. Now, most times I go with Ragnarok, but there have been some instances I've gone with Next Stage. And then the last stride before we get into the G guards is going to be a surprise tech, but I haven't used it yet, but I'll explain why I run it, which is the GB8 Beyond Order Dragon. And Beyond Order says, Act Van once per turn, GB8, Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, bind 8 cards from the top of the deck face up. After the original battle phase of this turn, you will perform an additional main phase and battle phase until the end of the turn. And then its other skill says, Auto Van, at the beginning of your main phase, stand this unit and get Strive -1 until the end of the turn. So, something I should point out is, because one of my friends got confused with this, it's not like Heritage. So if you swing with a rear guard and swing with this, then restand this, this rear guard will not restand because it's not another turn. So usually what people will do is they'll just swing this. If they get triggers, they'll put it wherever. Then they stand it and do whatever else they want to do. They're basically you're just using it for an extra battle phase and extra pressure. So moving on to the G guards, I'm running a single copy of Hetero Round. Hetero Round, basically, I don't want to call it Denial Griffin, but that's kind of what it does. Which is auto Soul Blast 1 when placed on Guardian. If you have a Chrono Jet Vanguard, pay the cost. If you do, choose one of your opponent's rear guards. Your opponent returns that unit to the deck, shuffles the deck, looks at the top card of the deck, and calls it to rear. Now, this is good, especially if your opponent has a rear guard with like a ton of power and stuff on it. Especially nice if that rear guard has the over trigger. And this is one of those, like, it could come back and bite you or it could really help you. This, I would actually possibly put this at 2 of. I just don't know what I would personally cut for it. Then I'm running a single copy of Highbrow Steam Rafana, and Rafana basically says, when placed on Guardian, choose up to one of your grade 1 or greater rear guards, return it to the deck. If I do, search your deck for up to 1 grade 0, call to the rear guard, shuffle the deck. If you call a card, this unit gets +10 until the end, +10 shield till the end of the battle. So this actually lets you call out your draw PG. Wait, is it rear guard? Okay, to the rear. So usually you'll use, don't mind me, you'll use this for Erbitar or one of the grade 0s that you want. Then I'm running a single copy of Retroactive Time Maiden Uluru, which just lets you put cards back to the deck. And then Time Maiden of Eternity, which basically says, gets a ton of power. You have to G-flip a G-guard, so you're really running 3 instead of 4. But this is a really good, especially in the later game, because this can get really high shield after your second stride. And yeah, that is the deck profile. I hope you guys have enjoyed. This deck for me, like I said, is just one of those decks I've been playing since the beginning, and I'm really happy to have this deck now. It actually works really well. I was genuinely surprised, and overall, yeah. Anyway, I will catch y'all in the next video. See ya.